Hello.
Good evening, Max.
Okay. Group one, are you ready for your presentations? Hello.
Yes, sure. Wait a minute.
Okay, okay, very good, thanks. We will start our presentation by 6 o'clock, okay? Wait for another 8 minutes, okay?
Yes, sure.
Okay, very good, thanks. Very good, thanks. Okay, Visa. Hello.
Yeah, sure.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, like, can you hear
Okay.
me?
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. We can start now. Then it's okay.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Wait.
Yeah.
Please wait a bit, teacher. My team member is preparing to share screen, teacher.
Okay. Okay. Yes. It's okay.
Can anyone see the screen now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, what? But
Can see.
can you make it okay, big screen? So what can you? Yeah. Okay. So good evening, teacher, and good evening, everyone. So I'm hoping you will have a good day today. So would like to start off this presentation by introducing our topic and our group members in the first line. So we are going to have a presentation over the topic of the Beijing Consensus, or in other terms, the China Economic Model. So we have 7 group members, including Visal, Sawat, Charlie Hiên, Me, Chiu Ming, Vichet, Wan Muni, and Chan Visal. So next slide, please. So this is the table of contents that we are going to discuss today. Start off with introduction, which I will be responsible for. So I will, for the introduction part, I will give you a brief introduction over our topic, the Beijing Consensus. And the content number 2 is the root cause, will be responsible by another team member, who will specify on why they need the Beijing Consensus in the first place. And the third con- point is the influence. Um, so the influence part will be responsible by another team member as well, who will be specified on how the Beijing Consensus influence in the world, and what are the instruments that China use in practicing Beijing Consensus. And the fourth one, the benefit and challenge of how will China get benefits from the Beijing Consensus, and what are the challenges that they are facing. And number 5, the conclusion will be responsible by me again. I will be wrapping up the whole presentation. So next slide, please. So moving on, we will have an introduction. So for the introduction part, I will all focus on answering the question, what is the Beijing Consensus? Because getting to understand this question will give you the deep insight to understand our whole presentation and our whole research project as well. So as we know that China's economic growth in the last few decades indicates a very fast growing economy in the world. And China actually was one least developed country, as we all know. However, starting from 1949, the factor of the factors of the economy in China started to push toward through many changes, reform, and revolutions, as we have studied the previous years. So these changes, reforms, and revolutions actually increased input capability and perspective that persuade industrialization. and market liberalization in China, which posed China to be a fast-growing economy that we see today. So the fuel progress tended to boost up from 1976 onward, with a major factor that contributed to the successful economic growth and the rise of China, which is the emergence of the economic model that we call the Beijing Consensus. So now back to our question, what is Beijing Consensus? So the Beijing Consensus is the political and economic reform, or in other words, it is called the China Alternative Economic Model, which emerged since the Deng Xiaoping era, and it focuses on three focuses, including innovation, pursuit of dynamic goal, or rejection of GDP per capita, and self-determination. So the first perspective, innovation, it emphasizes the government to innovate and recognize that new situations need new strategies. So the government shall implement the effective policy to solve problems that are important to the people. The second perspective, which is the pursuit of dynamic goal or rejection of GDP per capita, is actually the technical perspective, because it is the idea that reject the idea of Western policies and focus on the measures such as the equality of life and individual equity of the Chinese people. So these measures provide a point of view of the root cause of development, with economic growth, elimination of poverty, and enhancements of social welfare, including education and so on. So so the third focus, which is the self-determination, it emphasizes that the developing countries shall seek independence from the outside pressure and prioritize national policy, or yes, prioritize national policy and development. So in this perspective, China actually has often refused to submit many deals to outside pressures, but instead China only continue to focus on its own priorities and its own goal development. So this idea of of independence and self determination is the main indicator to focus on domestic improvement and escape from outside pressure, which is normally seen as pressure toward new innovation and development. So this is all a brief introduction on what the Beijing Consensus is, and I hope you get some idea about what it is, so that we can continue to my group member who will be responsible on the other part. So thank you. Would like to hand the floor to Wisang.
So thank you, Chume, for the floors. So now let's move to another part, which is about the root cause. And in this part, we focus on why China decided to practice Beijing Consensus as their economic model. So the Beijing Consensus is a political and economic policy that actually began to be instituted by the Chinese government under the administration of Deng Xiaoping after the death of Mao in 1976. And this Chinese economic model has been used as an idea to distinguish the Chinese economic development experience from the Washington Consensus. And therefore, there are three main reasons that the China decide to use the Beijing Consensus as their economic model. So first of all, China used the Beijing Consensus to challenge the influence of the Washington Consensus that is more likely popular in the developed countries and European countries. So Washington, in short, Washington Consensus refer to the policy that recommend, such as the tax reform, liberalizing interest rate, competitive exchange rate, trade liberalization, liberalization of inward foreign direct investment, and privatization. Basically, it is the theory of free market capitalism onward orientation and then macroeconomic policy. And however, the Beijing consensus has a little in common with Washington model. It is pragmatic and recognize the need for flexibility in solving multi-problem. And moreover than that, it is focused on innovation in its own development and pursuit of dynamic goals, and rejects of per capita GDP idealism, and also self-determination. So as the result, the Beijing consensus is quickly gaining appeal within the developing world, as well as the third world countries, as an alternative model for development. And second of all, the Beijing consensus is practiced in order to secure the international order and to balance the power with the US and the Western countries. So therefore, China utilized their successful economic development over the last 3 decades as experience to show the world by practicing their economic policy. So Chinese initiative in many international political economy, such as the ASEAN Infrastructure and Investment Bank, the New Silk Road Project, also known as One Belt One Road, the New Bridge Development Bank, and the Free Trade Area of the ASEAN Pacific, as a building blocks for emerging Beijing consensus to gain more support from the third world country. And to provide a critical account of how emerging Beijing consensus will possibly change the economic development line of the development country. And last but not least, China used the Beijing consensus model to develop and innovate their own economy and social development. So China has placed the innovation in its own development since a long time ago by maintaining a strong focus on creating effective policy to help their own people to solve off the important problems. So as an example, in the case of one-child policy, it has allowed China to reach their goals of its own population, such as the economic growth and stability. So to sum up, China decided to practice the Beijing consensus as the economic model in order to challenge the influence of the Washington consensus, to the balance of power with the United States and Western countries, as well as to secure its own economy and social development. And this is all of my part. Now I would like to invite my other teammate to continue the presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Visa, for giving me the floor and governing lecture on everyone. Let's move on to another part, which is I will deliver about the influence of how China dominated the world economic in the 21st century. Next slide, please. So, as my teammate mentioned earlier, the Beijing consensus as a concept has been used to assert the China successful economic development experience throughout the 21st century by provide an alternative to other concepts, particularly the Washington consensus policy, which commonly use IMF and World Bank as a tool to influence the world economy. And in contrast, China would use its initiative of economic development and the increasing importance of the soft power to attract most of the developing countries through the three main initiatives, such as the Asia Infrastructure and Investment Bank and the New Silk Road project, which is a one belt, one road. And the last one, the free trade areas of ASEAN Pacific, FTAAP, as an essential element of the emerging Beijing consensus to provide a critical mechanism of how how the Beijing consensus might indeed alter the economic development path of the developing countries. So All of these initiatives are combined with the soft power of China, which is at least lead to the outcome of the pragmatic foreign policy and economic appeal. Therefore, it gives China a non-barrier opportunity to increase its influence in both global politics and economy. Next slide, please. Hello. Okay. So first of all, the Asia's Infrastructure and Investment Bank, the AIIB, which is established in 2016 by the Chinese government that has global legitimacy due to its expansion of its membership, which include Asia, Africa, South America, and a large European nation economy, and most of the membership of the G20. It's not different from other international banks. Its mission is its mission to improve social and economic outcomes in the region, particularly to Asia and beyond. The difference is that the case of AIIB, China has owned half of the voting share with $29.78 billion, which is account around 26.06% voting share. So it gives the impression that the AIIB will serve China government interest than other members, and also China has the right to use the veto power in the AIIB decision. And not to mention the project that promote sustainable infrastructures and support country aiming to accomplish environmental and development goals are among the bank top priorities. Basically, the bank fund projects connecting country in the region and cross-border infrastructure investment for road, railway, port, and telecommunication across Central Asia, as well as the maritime roads in the East Asia and the South Asia and the Middle East. And moreover, the bank objective also build in the private capital mobilization and foster partnership that stimulate private capital investment, such as those with other multilateral development banks, government, and private financiers. So next slide, please. Next slide. May I have this one? Okay. No. The previous slide. Okay. So the second one is the one by one road. Is the one by one road. The one by one road is also one of the China's most and biggest infrastructure projects that aim to strengthen China connectivity with the world. It combines a new and the old project, cover an expansive geographic scope, and embrace to strengthen infrastructure projects such as a wide network of railway, energy pipeline, highway, and streamline border crossing. And the plan cover almost 138 nations with a combined cross domestic product of 29 trillion and 4.6 billion people as the observation in 2019. And according to the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in 2015, disseminate as an plan, an action plan by setting out specific goal of one Belt One Road, which include improving interstate communication, so that high-level government policy are more aligned, and also strengthening uh, infrastructure plan coordination to a better connect infrastructure network. And the third one, it also encourage the development of the trade environment, including the free trade agreement, uh, 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 regulatory alignment, and financial integration. And the last one is strengthening people-to-people movement by uh, by providing a scholarship to the student, technical experts, and exchange culture, as well as the tourism. Uh, so the One Belt One give China the potential to optimize its vast economic resource to fund the infrastructure projects all around the world. Next slide, please. So the last one, which is the free trade area of Asia Pacific. Basically, the this initiative. Hello. Okay. Basically, this initiative was established by the Chinese government, which they have reintroduced the FTA FTAAP idea and brought it back to the APEC agenda in 2014 as a result of the Chinese exclusion of TTP negotiation. Uh, Basically, the TTP covers only 12 nations, but the FTAAP, hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. But the FTAAP proposed to include all the TTP participants plus eight more member states. However, some countries are concerned that focusing on the FTAAP could shift attention away from the U.S. back of TTP and the China-backed regional comprehensive economic partnership ASEP, which is ASEP negotiation. So, so the countries that are not moreover, the countries that are not member of FCAAP, such as Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and India, and other European countries, also it has a part of One Belt One Road initiative that allow them to receive a faster trade and FDI and foreign direct investment liberalization as well. To put it in another way, the Chinese One Belt One Road initiative, the FTAAP initiative, complement one another in diverse way in order to achieve the joint aim of liberalizing trade and investment in the developing country. So in short, the Beijing consensus focus on how Chinese initiatives such as the AIIB and the One Belt One Road and the FTAAP will influence the development path of the developing country, and it also gives a chance for China to develop the world economy in the 21st century and still beyond. So this is the end of my part. I would like to give the floor to Sawat.
So move on to my part. I'm going to talk about the domestic and international benefit China Beijing consensus. So Specifically, my part is going to talk about the benefit that China got from the international, especially from the international agreement and also international cooperation from with other country. As we know that because of the influence of Beijing consensus have brought China to the whole new level in the global. China received a huge benefit, especially from the instrument that initiate from their Beijing consensus. So we talk about overall, we can call Belt and Road Initiative. As Visa had mentioned, a lot of a goal and also perspective and influence over both developed and developing country. Now we look at what kind of benefit that China could get. So in the overall, China have a trade relation with European country, even though they are not reciprocated. China still get an upper hand in exporting manufacturing goods to Europe, and also it increased the foreign investment by 4 times than the European country invest in China in 2016. And as for Central and South Asia country, mainly focus on the country of Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. China's business consume more than half of the gas export and also have signed a $15 billion in gas and uranium deal with Uzbekistan. So like China observe, consume and occupy those export from uh, this country. Moreover, around 376,000 Chinese people also got a job outside the country, especially because of China foreign investment in other developing countries. So it's also create more job for Chinese people to work abroad. And in addition, China also occupies the consumption of extracting natural resources such as like oil, gold, diamond, petroleum from a few African countries, specifically in the country of uh, Nigeria and also like yeah. And in the case of Sri Lanka, as we have known about the debt trap, Chinese firm hold up about 80% of the total share and a 99-year lease of the Haban total port after Sri Lanka government could not pay their debt. So this is from the benefit from the overall, even though this is only a summary, there is still more other benefit that China could get in the future. And as for AIIB, China is a main contributor. So because China initial capital is great in this bank, China can retain their voting veto power in order to use in any decision making inside AIIB. And every ASEAN and Asian country which require $8 trillion in total of infrastructure expedition or nearly 750 billion in infrastructure investment every year, China enjoy attracting more economic advantage from those countries as China inserted more loan. So like the China can gain the interest uh, after those ASEAN countries repay their debt. And in addition to AIIB, the new breed development bank we call NBDB, Chinese is also the main contributor as Chinese will play an essential role in the BRI summit as in UFA, Russia, July 2015. Chinese President Xi Jinping urged BRI country to press our governance to reform in the IMF. So like Chinese influence not only make uh, those contributor in their bank to reform the IMF and Chinese also try to make the BRIC country diversify the Chinese products through the establishment of future BRIC free trade zone, and the seats of which were sold in UFA too. And the last but not least, we try to look at the future benefit that China could get from FTAAP, where a comprehensive agreement income is estimated to be $2.4 trillion, which is equivalent to 2% of GDP in 2025. So at that time, China would be able to increase the GDP per capita of their people around $17,000. And other multilateral agreements such as regional comprehensive economic partnership and also trans-Pacific partnership. China's also have its market-oriented model influence, which Chinese can get the trade benefit between the country in both East and Southeast Asia from around $200 billion to nearly $900 billion. So to sum up, Beijing Consensus provides China's enormous benefit by increasing its economic influence, attracting support from both developed and developing countries, as well as its investment advantage that capture the important sector from various countries. And that's it for my part. Let's move on to the challenges.
Okay, so good evening, everyone, and teacher. I hope everyone is still awake. And we haven't got to the challenge yet. We have two more parts, which is about the China domestic growth in the early 21st century. So this part will examine the strengths and small weaknesses of the Chinese economic model, so-called the Beijing Consensus. So if we take a look at the economic spectrum, China annual average growth rate was only around 5% in 1978. However, by 2001, the growth rate reached 8.1% with an industrial growth rate of nearly 11.5%. So there was also a huge development and growth along the coastal areas like Shenzhen, which was able to transform from a fishing village into a dynamic manufacturing city, which created millions of jobs for migrants and the poor Chinese. So along with this high annual growth rate, China has also managed to reduce the proportion of population that earn less than $1 per day from 64% a huge one in 1981 to only 16% by 2006. Essentially, it raised 400 million individuals out of extreme poverty. And furthermore, China has also modernized its public education system, reformed the science and research capability, and also engaged in high-tech manufacturing, which is in contrast to the misconception from the world that China is stuck in labor-intensive, low-tech, and sweatshop export production. However, as a result of this economic growth, the red line of its environmental problem and natural resources depletion still remain a major issue. As you can see on the slide, the bad impact, I raised up the two major issues. So the number of environmental problems, including the growing energy consumption, the how we rely on coal and increasing air pollution are threatening China's sustainable future as well as the health system. China is also one of the world's largest carbon producers, which lead to the bad air quality in major cities. And this was caused by the large coal consumption in the country. And more than that, China is home to 20% of the world population, but the proportion of the fresh water is only 7% of the global fresh water sources. And as a result, with this little amount, 70% of that small fresh water was used for agricultural and industrialization purposes that led to some cities in China encounter water shortage. Yes, we can move to the next slide. So this part takes a quick look at political differences between previous and current leader of China in terms of leadership style. So although President Xi Jinping showed similarity to Deng Xiaoping in the earlier year of his presidency, he has acted differently from the previous leader ever seen. So while Deng Xiaoping had his focus on a stable external environment in order to achieve the economic development, Xi Jinping's approach showed that he preferred to use the economic means of China to achieve the security ends. So this new approach was seen during the 28th financial crisis as China started to become more ambitious and confident in its economic policy by taking on a proactive leadership role that utilize greater influence abroad. For instance, under Xi Jinping, China has developed into the form of a more visible initiative and more aggressive economic policy, as you heard from my teammate earlier, the Belt and Road Initiative, which is a far-reaching and global initiative that could increase geopolitical tension further. And for your information, this initiative, BRI, was originally influenced by the Much West strategy that believed China should focus on foreign policy that engaged with Central Asia and the Middle East while minimizing tension with the United States in East Asia at the same time. And more than that, President Xi Jinping also launched campaigns that would consolidate his power in the Communist Party and in the country as well. And one of those campaigns was the launching of crackdown, sweeping on corrupted Chinese Communist Party officials, in which nearly 1.5 million people, including senior officers, senior military leader, and even his former political rivals were investigated and punished in 2018. And at the same year, in 2018, the National People Congress, which is the member of China Parliament, overwhelmingly approved an amendment on constitution that would abolish the two-term limit for the country president, allowing Xi Jinping to stay in power even after his two-term limit ends. And some literature actually stated that supporters of all this reform believe it will give Xi Jinping more power to check on inefficient state-owned enterprises, corrupted local government, as well as push for more economic reform that ensures sustainable growth. So that's pretty much for my part. Next, my teammate will explain more about the challenges of Beijing Consensus. Thank you. The floor is now yours.
Okay, good evening, lecturer, and good evening, everyone. So this part I'm gonna present about the challenges that have affect to this Chinese economic model. And in this part, there is two challenges that we mentioned. One is a trade war, and another one is the global pandemic COVID-19. So I will present about the trade war issue. So as you know that one of the principles of the Beijing Consensus is they focus on the export-led growth. It's been like this model tend to focus more export than the import. So when there is a trade war happen between the China and the U.S., since the U.S. is the most trading exporting partner from the China, that they export a lot of electric mechanic and also steel product, car, railway product, and which are equal to the 50 billion US dollar. And when there is a trade war, the US has imposed a 25% on the punitive tariff and on duty, and also 25% on the tariff. And this have led the export growth. The net export of China fell from the 8% to 3% into 2010. And the effect of the trade war also lower the growth rate, the GDP growth rate of the China during that period. Also, like they have dropped to 6% in 2018, and therefore we have questioning that whether the trade war has made this economic model become weak, or it's not a good model to practice or not. And we assume that the trade war provide a negative impact to this Chinese economic model, but it doesn't mean that this economic model is a weak model. Like, as you know, that the trade war here is happened between the China itself and also the US. So it may be lead to that trade war has negatively affected the economic model. And and also uh, if the other country that they don't affected from the trade war and if they practice this Chinese economic model, I believe that uh, trade war if not one factor that make this model weak. And the other challenges our teammate will present about it.
Thank you. We are continuing to another challenge. Of course, trade war issue is one of the main challenge toward Beijing consensus, but currently we are facing a crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic has been affected to many sectors and many fields, especially for Beijing consensus as well. And the problem is not about the actual policy, but it is all about the implementation of the consensus. And as we already know, this consensus is not just about export and trading or export as we mentioned earlier, but it is also meant as a social transformation, and it is all about the economic reform and as well as about how to use economics and governance to enhance society at the same time, because we all trying to avoid the infection of COVID-19. So the government trying to prevent such um, a problem toward their citizens. So that's why they're trying to limit the individual liberties, such as lockdown methods or policy, and also there's been a territorial assertions in violation of international law and the pursuit of that trade diplomacy that it led to the failure of global support, and the season also face some problem regarding the trading and exporting also face some problem because the government has restricted some the flow of such import and export, and because they're trying to avoid the infection, I mean the higher number of infection of COVID-19 inside China. So I think this is also one of the big reason currently that affected the implementation of Beijing Consensus, and it's failed to give the good image of Beijing Consensus, and the poor handling of China's government over the prevention of COVID-19 could only highlight the Beijing Consensus flaws rather than positive side. So that is it for the challenges for the Beijing Consensus. That is it, and we move on to the conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you for the comprehensive presentation earlier about the body part of our presentation. So now we move to conclusion. I will recap of what we've been presenting so far. So we'll be answering this 5 questions, like what is Beijing consensus again? What are the root cause? What are the influence and instrument? What are the benefits that China gained from the consensus? And what are the challenges? So again, the term that you have heard, Beijing consensus, is the political and economic reform, or in other words, it is mostly known, even more popular, it is the alternative economic model that China has been adapting to improve and enhance its economic growth and development. So the idea of Beijing consensus actually emerged due to 3 reasons. So firstly, it's emerged to challenge the Washington consensus. Secondly, the Beijing consensus is practiced in order to balance the international order and to compete with the US and the Western countries. And thirdly, China used this consensus to develop and innovate its own economy and social development. Beijing consensus has been practiced through many platforms, including Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank, the New Silk Road Project or OBOR, and the Free Trade Area of the Asia Pacific. So aside from the influence, China also gained a lot of benefits, both international arena and domestic growth as well. So Regarding to the challenges, as my previous teammate mentioned, we could consider two main challenges, which is the first one, the trade war, and the second one is the most current event, the global pandemic. So this marks the end of our presentation, and if any of you have any question, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentations. Are there any questions from our listeners? Yes.
Hello everyone. Hello teacher. I have a question.
Yes, please.
So, first of all, I would like to thank to the group for providing such a comprehensive and informative presentations to the class. So, my question is that I heard that the group mentioned something about the policies that Chinese government made to overcome 2008 financial crisis. So, can all of you elaborate more on that?
Okay, so I think my part also touch up on the China response to the global financial crisis in 2008. Can you move to my part 4.3, I believe? Okay, so as you all everyone know, the global financial crisis take place in the 2008. So at that time, if I remember correctly from my research, in the second half of 2008, the export demand collapsed due to the global financial crisis. So it led to the long postponed overcapacity that surfaced suddenly in China. So in this case, there is a need for the correction um, in which the Chinese government moved quickly to mitigate the falling GDP through the stimulus package and monetary expansion. So around November, as I remember, around November 2008, the government introduced a 4 trillion yuan stimulus package for 2009 and 2010, which equal to approximately 14% of 2008 GDP of China. So the success of China's stimulus package is really surprising that the China budget deficit was so low that after the stimulus, China debt should be around only 20% of the GDP. So this is a little information from my research. I hope I answer your question. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any specific questions you want your friends to address? Okay, I think there's no further questions. Thank you so much for your presentations about China's countries. How can I say it just? Okay, we let me inform you that again. Thank you for your presentations, and let me inform you that we don't have the second session for today. And like we discussed last time, we are going to have the panel discussion for each particular group for that. So I will. Can we just move your panel discussions to another day for group 1, and then for next week, group 2 needs to be present in the first sessions. And the second sessions, we will manage to have a discussions about the we will have a discussion about the specific topic that you are going to present to the whole class. Okay. Hello.
Yes.
So teacher, to clarify, we will have panel discussion for group 1 next week, right? With group 2.
Not next week, not next week. We'll be group 2 only. I will arrange the time for the group discussions for group 1, okay? Hello. Somewhere writing. Yes, the midterms. Darwin, I don't think next week we can have midterm. Group 2, are you ready by next week? Let me ask you for the presentation first. Darwin, are you from group 2?
I'm group 5, teacher.
Okay. Let me ask group 2 first. If you need more times, maybe we can have midterm by next week. It's gonna be all right too, to me. Okay, so let's put it by this way. We will have midterm by next week, the 2nd of December. Do you think you will be available?
Yes, sir.
Can it be another week? Like,
Sorry?
can it be another week? Like, it seems like so fast for us.
Okay, to me it's okay then. So let's say the 9th of December. Is it a holiday or not?
I'm not sure.
Let me check. Give me a second. Okay, no, there's no holiday, so let me set up the midterm by 9th of December. Okay. Yep. The midterm test there will be 2 hours. Okay. There will be 2-hour midterm test from 6 to 8. Okay, so be aware of that. And there will be 2 parts for the midterm test. There will be comprehensive question and also the critical question. Okay.
How many chapters, teacher?
Chapter that we have been covered together. Okay. Topic 1 until topic 6. Yeah. And also include the Asian, the driver for economic growth in the Asian member state. Okay.
Thank you, teacher.
Okay, very good. Thanks. No worry, I will inform you in detail by next week in terms of the midterm test. Okay, so let's set a date by the 9th of December. Okay, so please be ready for that. So group 2, you are going to present by next week too. Okay, so don't forget about that.
Teacher, so to clarify again, group 1 panel discussion is on first session next week.
No. I will arrange another time for you. Okay. So what discussion?
Yes, lecture.
Yes. For next week, there should be group 2. The floor is for group 2. Okay. I'm sorry for this inconvenience. I have a emergent appointment by 7:10, so I could not come to our class until the end. Okay. Hello. So what
Yes.
is that clear?
Yes,
Vishal, also clear. Okay. Again, thank you so much for your effort in terms of preparing the presentations. But you didn't cover the Japanese economy. I hope that for the panel discussion, I might bring some about the Japanese economy to you too. Okay. So be aware of that too. Group 1. Hello.
Teacher, could you repeat, teacher? It was lagging, teacher.
I mean, you didn't specify the Japanese economy. So for the panel discussion with the date that I'm going to inform you in the future, the Japanese economy might be come up for our discussions. Okay, so be ready for that too. Okay. Is that claiming?
Yes, teacher, but actually, as we group number one, we covered the East Asian economy. We thought we could choose just one country, teacher. So that's why we choose China.
Okay. Okay. It's all right then. Just try to have a brief understanding about Japanese economy too. Okay. I bring. If you don't have if you don't have much idea, I may give you some insight about Japanese economy too. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, teacher. Yes.
Okay. Very good then. Again, thank you so much for being patient with me, and have a good day. Okay. Please have a very good day and take a good rest too. Okay. See you next week for group 2. Okay.
Goodbye, teacher.
Okay.
Goodbye,
Good
teacher.
luck.
Goodbye.